Welcome to Film Crusade. Mari, what are we talking about?
He did that again. He did Welcome to Film Crusade.
The Welcome to Film Crusade.
Yeah.
Sure. Welcome to Film Crusade.
Wait, sorry, one more time.
Welcome to Film Crusade.
I mean,
this is all going to be in
three
here.
times. Sorry. So, Ethan, what are we going to be talking about today?
Oh, we're going to be talking about Barbarian, the new film from Cregger, one of the whitest kids you know people.
Oh.
Yeah. Sketch comedy group based in New York from 13.
There you go. I was waiting for you to finish the rest of what he did. Because he just went into it being like, one of the whitest kids you know.
Yeah.
But which I have not seen that personally, but it's amazing to me that when Ethan, when you told me about that, and it was like a sketch comedy group, I was like, huh, that guy does that back then, and does this, because complete 180. Like,
which is the same background Peele came from, actually.
Yeah, like
comedy, so.
But I feel like with this one is actually no, they're the same, because in terms of subject matter, in terms of like intensities, I feel.
Yeah. Well, especially in terms of like debut horrors for you anyway,
yeah,
because
no, yeah.
Get Out is still your favorite Peele, so
yeah,
which makes sense. Not denigrating himself.
Yeah, no. But in terms of like a directorial debut in their film, yeah, no, most definitely, just because he did a fucking fantastic job directing this and writing it.
Yeah.
Which just, I mean, right from the first shot I was like, oh my god, like it's competently made, which is funny because a lot of people have been saying do not watch the trailers and just go into it blind. Like don't read anything about it, don't even look at anything, but just go see the movie.
Yeah, which that is kind of almost true for us, but also like watch and listen to our stuff, especially if you're fans of ours, just watch and listen to our stuff, but also go see this movie. If you are a fan of the horror,
I feel
if you don't watch horror movies, just watch and listen to this review.
But also like just go watch the movie. I mean, we're gonna talk spoiler free as much as we can, and if we do, we will tell you spoilers. But we're gonna keep this as vague as possible because everybody else has kept it really, really, really vague. And for good reason too, because the things that happen in this movie. It's such a nice surprise to just go in there and just watching it, and you're just kind of like, oh shit, like watching a story untangle, and you're just like, oh my god, like, because I can safely say I don't really get scared of horror movies anymore, like like the type of scare where you're just kind of like, oh my, like you're like petrified after watching it and you're like, oh my god. Because usually it's like, I'll watch something and maybe I'll get like, oh, that was a little bit unsettling, but then I'm going to the bathroom light and then I'm just turning off the lights and I'm knocking out. Like, after seeing this movie, I literally got up from the theater and got out of the theater, I was still like processing everything. It was midnight. And I was like, and I went there alone because I thought it was gonna be like your run-of-the-mill horror, maybe a good story, but I'm not gonna get scared that much. But I got both while watching this, and like
which is a big deal when it comes to Ahmari. Me getting unsettled, kind of everything unsettles me just a little bit. Like but that's life as a teacher, No,
I'm actually serious. It's like a spider right behind you. I'm just joking.
I'm used to spiders by now, but it's still because there was like this big of a spider in my room at my like middle school, and I had to kill that sucker by myself, and it was not fun. But
I just kind of put them in a little jar and just like let them out. You
yeah,
just go for it.
well, this was gonna kill me.
But
there was no second chances involved there. It was.
But I do think, I mean, where do you start with this? I mean, they do so
great
much.
Performances from the cast.
Yes,
great directing, great screenplay, tight screenplay. Knows exactly when to cut away from one section of the story and goes to the next.
Which I think it's like, I think that might be jarring for people because of the structure of this movie. But honestly speaking, like I think there was a what was it? It was Every Frame a Painting. Had his video on a video essay on F for Fake, and in that video he did say that one of the great things about F for Fake was the editing, and that they knew when to cut. They cut right when things got interesting. And that's when you cut to like another, like a completely something. You cut to something else or whatever.
And now for something completely different.
Yeah. And that keeps
that's actually
yeah. And I feel like that keeps you hooked. You know, it hooks you and you're like, okay, I'm really curious, but then you're kind of curious about this other thing that's gonna happen now. Which this movie does that flawlessly. It does this so great. And I think the other thing it does really great is leaving things unsaid.
Yeah.
Like the implication of things, which I think I was thinking, like while watching this, I couldn't help but think of Sicario, where, you know, by Denis Villeneuve, where they don't show everything, but
you see the impact.
Yeah, and
you have like evocative visuals that are not, you know, exploitational in any way. And instead you just kind of have the impact or a atmospheric type choice.
It's the thing with I mean, you said this and a bunch of other people have said this. It's fearing what you don't know, what you don't see.
Yeah.
And it's,
I mean, that's the basis of horror, is like much more terrifying thing is what you don't see. Because if you see it, you're like, okay, I can see it, I know what it is.
And there you go. Like, yeah. And I think, like, because I mean,
I don't have to be scared anymore because
and I think this one is kind of, it sets up tension and it gets you to a point, and then you are kind of released from the tension, but it's really still there in the back of your mind. It's kind of creeping in.
Yeah, well, there's when it cuts away, you almost think, okay, things are going to be all right but there is a weird, almost parasite in the back of your head saying there's some stuff that we don't know what exactly is gonna, like if we're gonna go back to that, and what's gonna happen there. And also I will say there's several things that have been mentioned about this movie in other reviews that almost feel like misdirects of like, a smart person who watches things and is like pretty easy to figure out certain things, like me, because I usually figure out things by 15 minutes before they happen in a movie.
That is true. I kind of go with the wave of things. Ethan's very much like, all right, this, like, he'll text me sometimes and be like, okay, so this is gonna happen, and this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen. I was like, nah, and it does happen. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I've seen too many things but this, no, I did not. I mean, by the end, yeah, a little bit, but even that stuff, I was kind of like, oh wait, you know, and then the very end, I was like, oh, okay.
It reminds me a lot of what I think, what was it? Jeremy Johns had a review on Dawn way back when, Dawn for the Planet of the Apes, and it was, he talked about the fact that you were going in, like he was like, okay, it's gonna be like the story's gonna go like this, and then he was like, oh no, it goes like this. All right, now it's definitely gonna go like this. Nope, it goes like this now. Oh, well, how about now? Nope. So
Yeah,
I couldn't help it when you were telling me that when you were watching it, you couldn't figure out what was gonna happen. I was like, I couldn't help but think about like, oh yeah, it's very much like that same
yeah.
thing.
It stays ahead of you just a little bit, just enough to where you even if you're a very seasoned movie fan, you kind of are like, um, maybe like, and it like I don't want to get into spoilers with this, but there's a certain plot thread where you're like, oh, maybe it's about this and this person's okay. But then very quickly you realize, no, you're following someone not so okay. Um, because you think, oh, maybe this is setting up redemption of some kind. And no, that's not what this is interested in.
I will say that along with that, the movie, I think I actually just the whole movie, like we just said, just does that. It's a whole movie that stays ahead of you and does its
Yeah.
very good, very best to do that.
Which is why I'm curious about rewatching it, because
Yeah,
when we first recorded a review for this, I was like, this is my number one. And it still might be, actually.
really. Wow. Okay.
I I need to rewatch it because
Yeah.
because I think now knowing how the movie's going to be could definitely change how I feel about it and be like, okay, yeah, it is the number 2 or number 3 of the year.
What I'm
But
afraid of is that it might compromise. Like it's like the first experience is so good that when you go back and watch it, you're kind of like waiting for the stuff to happen. That's my
I
one fear
think
about
that
it.
happens with so many movies
That's
usually.
true. Well, I feel like a movie like this that is like so for the most part kind of like hush hush and secretive. Like if you go back and watch like an M Night Shyamalan movie and you know what happens, it kind of like you're still curious. Like, does the movie still work even
Yeah.
knowing this and like this happened?
And
Um,
that's why I need to rewatch it. Where
yeah,
currently, like I did, we're not going to talk about this film, but I did place a highly debated film above this um in my year ranking when I watched that a few days ago. But I do think there's some aspects of that where I'm like, I still love it. It definitely lived up to parts of the hype, but this one is like one that if it plays right on rewatch, I could continue rewatching, where the other one's more of like a great artistic achievement and not something I'd return to um except once every couple of years, maybe
yeah.
because of how rough it is.
Mm.
Where this one I feel like I could come back to again and again because it's such a great example of genre filmmaking. But I would need
Yeah,
to.
no, honestly, which that leads me into something actually that's a good segue actually. The way this is shot is really cool. They do
Yeah,
some really interesting shots in here and a lot of stylistic choices, a lot of like
almost like a Wes Craven and Raimi Carpenter,
yeah.
like kind of homaging the classics, but building something new out of it, which I think
There's also like along with the structure of this movie, there is a different approach to the structures cinematography wise that I think was very interesting. And I think I thought that was really, really cool and like creative, not inventive, but creative.
yeah,
Um, and I couldn't help but just be like that. I was like, I was like, I like that. I like the fact that they went the extra mile to like make it visually appealing and interesting too. And along with that, the music too. Like I think the score is actually really, really strong in this
yeah.
when it's there because I think it doesn't come. There's like the first score, like that first
Like
piece.
there's some great moments of silence here
Yeah,
where it's not.
I think the first piece of music actually doesn't come until like 20 minutes into the movie,
Yeah,
and I think it actually does a great
outside
job.
of like there's the title card drop that comes with a
Oh
little
yeah,
bit of
yeah,
music,
yeah.
but I think most of that is most of the opening is very musicless outside of like non-diegetic, or yeah, outside of like royalty music of like title card and
Yeah, I think
other
also,
songs and
and
things.
I think it does a great job also with like sound design. I don't know. I just remember. I mean, you see, if I mean, I can't even say. I'm trying not to say anything about this movie.
Yeah, it's very hard to like
It's
say, oh
so
yeah,
hard. Like
this
I
part
think,
of the movie is really well done, because and this is why, you know, probably during our year-end video when we're catching up on like our favorites, and enough people have seen Barbarian to where we can finally talk fully about how great certain aspects of it are. Because even during the spoiler section, you can't get every detail out that you want to get out.
no, yeah, you need like a whole separate kind of like a full on, like spoiler filled review about it. Just because like there's a lot of cool, not cool, but there's not actually not even cool. Cool is actually the wrong word to use here, but I think there's a lot of interesting commentary and a lot of commentary that needs to be said
Yeah.
about the state of the world and just what has always been. And I think a movie like this really like kind of is another piece of entertainment that has like has shed light on certain issues. Which again, if you're going back to Get Out for a second, Get Out is another movie where yeah, it sheds light on certain issues that happen in our world. And I think I think a really great filmmaker um sits down and really analyzes a lot of what and deconstructs these aspects of humanity and in life, and kind of puts them into a story and stuff, and a story that that they really want to tell, and kind of, and with horror, it's like a horror movie, it's very interesting when they do it, because I feel like a drama is like you're expecting it, but when you put it into a genre piece, either sci-fi, horror, or animation, it kind of like it does something. It's like it reaches I want to say it reaches like a wider audiences, but it does pique a lot of does pique people's interest, because you're adding something into a genre
Yeah.
which has a set of rules, if you will.
Yeah.
That was such a messy way of saying it, and that sounded so artistic. It sounded so pretentious there for a second. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well, what's even funny about all that is we could philosophize all we want about the big statements the movie has. It doesn't like overstate them, which is welcoming in this day and age where all our horror has to be about something, and it has to be about it in capital letters, and it has to be stated over and over again, where this one kind of, it's still part of it, but it's not the only thing about it that works. Because you have movies where, even though I still enjoy some of these more than others, of like Men from Alex Garland, but it is very much, oh, men are not great people and women have to deal with a lot from men. And it's, hey, women, I'm on your side. Um, from this British Gen X dude who is kind of like, I think I get where you're coming from. Look at me. I'm a guy who gets it. Where this is like, it has its commentary, but it doesn't rub the audience's faces in it.
Yeah, which I do appreciate. I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, I think we very much live.
Like, it's a horror movie first,
I mean, I'm so sorry.
political commentary second.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, and going off that, honestly, we do live in a world now that, and at least with the media now, everything's kind of being shoved in your face.
Yeah.
Certain social issues, and just issues in general.
Well, art has always been a
Yeah,
political thing, and that's okay.
no, that's fine. Yeah,
But it's also like, now, if it's not overtly political, why are you even making it?
yeah, and
That is kind of something where, if we could move slightly away from that and more towards good stories again, rather than good, oh, look at, let's pat ourselves on the back, or it's kind of,
yeah, because I mean, because you get a lot of TV shows and movies that do that, and I think with that, you just, I mean, I don't know, it's just, it becomes too much at times. I know I've definitely talked to people who have shared, like, strong opinions about the fact that some things are just overstated, and they're like, I kind of wish it was felt more natural. Like, you don't need to, like, it's already enough said because it's you seeing it visually, but you don't need to just, continuously kind of hold up this sign and be like,
Yeah.
hey, it's this, hey, it's this. I think that's important enough, but I think when you overdo it, it becomes a point where it's the agenda now has become that and less about what this movie was supposed to be about. Like, you can take this sci-fi
Which
movie.
I think this shares with Jordan Peele's movies in terms of like the commentary is still there in all of Jordan Peele's movies, but it's also like focused on being a good movie first.
Yeah, like you can take like a sci-fi movie and be like, someone's like, oh, I want to make a sci-fi about this, and you add some like social justice issues to it. Then it's like, then they're like, okay, we're getting so concerned about telling the social justice aspect that we just kind of take the sci-fi is now taking a back seat. And it's
Yeah.
kind of like, it's kind of like,
Which representation, social justice are very important things.
yeah,
Not denying
yeah,
that.
but
But
yeah,
they shouldn't take precedence over good filmmaking, good story,
or yeah.
good script. Um,
And I think a lot, and I
you
think,
know,
and I think a lot,
non on the nose dialogue.
yes, like, not, oh my god, I hate on the nose dialogue so fucking much. And I think,
I enjoy sometimes when it's like aware of itself. I enjoy on the nose dialogue, but there's a time and place. And
but I think Barbarian, and like you said, Jordan Peele's movies, and I would even say you could make the argument Ari Aster, maybe, but mostly Jordan Peele and Barbarian for right now.
yeah,
You could
there's the
or
people who say that.
Mike Flanagan.
Yeah, there's the people that say Mike Flanagan is more political than he should be, and I don't really see that. Like, I guess maybe some people thought Midnight Mass ended up being very timely in terms of a post-COVID America, but that wasn't his intention,
No, yeah, and I mean,
because
and
he
it
came
does,
up with that years ago.
yeah, and it does
So
show. I don't know. I think with Barbarian being another example of just, it's a good mixture of both. I think is a good. It's one of the, like, one of the things I like about this one, and one of the
and it's
standouts, honestly.
scary.
It is
It's
scary.
actually scary.
Yeah, because it's again, I can't say anything about it, but it is generally, for the subject matter that it deals with, it is very scary, and it's something that, like, yeah, it just really got under my skin, and I'm serious. Like, I walked out of that theater just like petrified. Like, I was very just like, I was like somewhat shaking because I was like, Jesus. And I don't, and again, it's just like, there are certain horror films that would do it for me. And if I talk about another video about like the horror movie that has gotten that to me, then I'll say what that is. But because I can't say it here because I don't want to give anything away. But
Yeah, other stuff because of course I mentioned Barbarian in the Empty Man review, but there's we've hopefully got some Halloween stuff that a lot of episodes going on.
yes, we do. I've yeah, Ethan said it best. Yeah, we're doing like a whole Halloween month, as many videos as we can, and as many like movies as we can.
That's why this one's shorter. That's why this take on this is not going to have the spoiler section, just because you should see it, and then we'll talk about it more later. Should we be pried to like, and I will see it again by the time we talk about it again, so I can say, oh yeah, with a second viewing,
Yeah,
this is now my full opinion on it.
but I think we would both say, at least for Barbarian, that everybody should really go see it if they haven't already.
Yeah,
Because it's really one of
as
the,
long as you're into horror,
yeah.
because if you're not, like the scared of Mari, which maybe for some of you you're like, oh, scared this, no, like scared him, which
But I mean, I don't get scared anymore. I mean, that's not much to anything. I knew some people who did go into this like to see the movie, didn't really get scared. But again, like,
but
I guess,
it's like it's always a matter of what people get scared by, because some people do genuinely get scared at zombie movies, and I will, outside of one or two of them,
I
will
was gonna
never
say, like, I was gonna say,
understand that.
I was gonna say, like, I'm like, some movies don't really freak me out, except for 28 Days
Yeah,
Later.
like
Like
that one's freaky, but
that's a
it's
little
because
freaky.
fast zombies and things. But if you like watch the original zombie movies, like George Romero movies, those are really great movies, but they're not all about the scares really. Like the gore effects are great, but you know, well, in Dawn and Day of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead is very minimal with the gore effects. Anyway, um, but different people are scared by different things, but this is one that I think is a little more in that realm that really gets to Amari and I, which is this whole thing. And not to bring up the filmmaker that I shouldn't bring up all the time, but Rob Zombie, of like this dual Americas kind of a theory that I've been working on over the past few weeks, which is there's the America that we present to everyone of like good neighborhoods, happy people, all this kind of stuff. And then it starts to seep in with the second America, because you go to the grocery store and you see a wall of missing people posters, and some of them haven't been seen in 20 years. And you're like, that person's dead, but how did they die? Or maybe they found a new life, all this kind of stuff. And there's the ghost towns and the abandoned gas stations. And that's where the second America starts to come, and you don't know what doors you should knock on and not knock on.
Yeah.
And so Barbarian keys into that so well that it's probably the horror film of the year outside of Crimes of the Future and Nope. But well, Nope's not.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah.
And
I
same thing
mean,
with Crimes of the
Future
Future.
Crimes of the
There's like
Future is
things where I'm
there
like,
hasn't really,
technically,
there hasn't really been that many horror movies. At least I've seen. I think all the horror movies I'm thinking about now are just coming out now, because we are in October, and now a lot of things are going to be coming out that I'm very curious about. For instance, one of them is Smile. I'm hearing great
yeah, I
things about
haven't seen it.
Smile, so I'm gonna go see Smile at one point. So there that is.
And if he likes it, I will see it.
But
And he also needs to see the Black Phone.
yep. But yeah, no, with Barbarian though, I think everybody should go see that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Yeah.
Hashtag would recommend.